Hey, shalom, shalom, mishpocha. Welcome to another edition of Ray Bash's Ramblings. Today I'd like to ask the question, can somebody be overly righteous? Let's find out. In Ecclesiastes, Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon said, in chapter 7, verses 16 to 17, "Be not righteously overmuch, neither make thyself overwise. Why should thou destroy thyself, or why should thou make thyself desolate? Be not overmuch wicked, neither be thou foolish. Why should thou die before thy time?" It's one of those verses that make you kind of cock your head and go, is he saying what I think he's saying? Does this mean what I think it means? Well, this verse kind of piqued my curiosity, so I decided to flesh it out and kind of see what this meant. And being overly righteous, kind of looking at the Hebrew, looking at the context of the passage, it made me think of what we used to call in grammar school a goody two-shoe. What's a goody two-shoe? A goody two-shoe is somebody who, who in their effort to be good, to be a good boy or to be a good girl, they are overly good in that they become a narc or a tattletale, or they have this condescending, holier-than-thou attitude, and is just waiting to get somebody busted. I mean, I'm talking about the kind of kid that you love to hate, the kind of kid you probably gave a wedgie and beat up in school. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it means. Why should you destroy yourself? A person like that, you want to beat up. Now, I looked up goody two-shoe in the Urban Dictionary, and the Urban Dictionary says that a goody two-shoe is someone who always does what's right and not what they're supposed to do. Basically kind of the same thing that I said. I'm not justifying sin, but being overly righteous, being a goody two-shoe, is not human. It's inhuman, because you end up being cruel. It's kind of like that girl on that cartoon who is always collecting animals, and they're so desperately trying to get away. She literally loves those animals to death. Or like the abominable snowman, "I'm gonna love him and squeeze him and hold him and, oh no, what happened, George?" Kind of like that. Or it's being like really belligerently honest when somebody has like a rancid hairdo or a horrid dress, and they're like, "Oh, do you like?" And, like Mama said, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. You can be kind of like Spock and omit. You don't have to totally tell the truth. You can omit. Instead of saying, "Oh, I think that's a ratty dress," or, "Man, who cut your hair? Did you get in a fight with a lawnmower?" Instead, just say, "Hey, man, that's you." Kind of like, "Hey, that's your style. That's all about you." And there, you're not you're not hurting somebody's feelings. And did you know that God did this? God did this Spock-like omission. Genesis 18:12 and 13 says, "Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I am waxed old, shall I have the pleasure, my Lord being old also? And the Lord said to Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I surely bear a child when I am old?" Notice any Spock-like omissions there? Yeah, he left out the part where Sarah said Abraham was old. God was concerned about Abraham's feelings, did not want to hurt his feelings or to make him think his wife was disrespecting him or having him lose face in front of God. So God omitted that. He wasn't lying. He just didn't tell everything that Sarah said. It was unnecessary because it was going to hurt his feelings. So, that's kind of like what being overly righteous is. It's almost kind of being stupid, like if a murderer breaks into your home and says, "Hey, is your wife and kids here so I could rape and kill them?" Yeah, they're hiding under the bed in the master bedroom. What idiot's going to do that? That's being, that's an example of being overly righteous. It's life over law. The protecting your family supersedes the commandment of being honest. Just like in wartime, where it's permissible to kill, it's kill or be killed. What idiot's going to go out to war and say, "Well, I don't believe in war. I'm a pacifist." Well, you're going to get your head blown off. You're as good as dead. So it's kind of the same thing. Now, verse 17 kind of speaks for itself. If you'll remember, verse 17 says, "Be not overmuch wicked, neither be thou foolish. Why should thou die before your time?" That's somebody who doesn't look both ways when crossing the street, doesn't wear seatbelts, doesn't wear a helmet when riding a bike, uses dirty needles, has unprotected sex. They're stupid. They're just asking to die. it's almost being self-destructive. It's that adrenaline rush you get when you think you could get away with cheating death. And it says here that you're going to die before your time. So that's just being plain foolishly stupid. And it's also kind of like the bad guy in the movies that you see, that's so bent on revenge and evil and destruction that his own badness, his own evilness, is his own ends. So reading these verses, that's kind of what I got out of it. And come to find out that Maimonides basically, or I'm sorry, I pronounced that wrong. The Rambam basically said the same thing. He was talking about how there's two extremes, as far as being good and being evil, that the balance is somewhere in between. And it's not necessarily in the direct middle. Sometimes, depending on the circumstances, it could be more one way and more the other. But there's a balance that has to be met. And that's kind of basically what I talked about. And that's kind of what it boils down to, is balance. So some have interpreted this passage, to say that, this is like the Pharisee, somebody being over religious, being religious on the outside and not on the inside. Nah, I'm not buying that, because this passage is not talking about religion or ritual, but morality and commandments. It's talking about the Torah. And, the passage is talking about trying to be spotlessly righteous to the nth degree, which, first embraces the inner struggle to be righteous, which then manifests itself on the outside. So I don't think that's it either. And I've heard other people say that, this passage is giving permission for moral relativism. No. Obviously, King Solomon is not talking about moral relativity. So that interpretation is bogus. I think it's about balance. It's being balanced, because, can you be too good? Can you be overly righteous? Well, sure, I just gave you plenty of examples. And in being overly righteous, you ironically end up, making yourself foolish, making yourself one of those wicked people that's talked about in verse 17. So anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this passage and the commentary on this passage on Ecclesiastes. Shalom, and we'll catch you next time, folks.